Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here today with Myron J. Clifton, a prolific creator. He's the author of several novels and books, has a publishing company, a blog, and a podcast. So I'm like, what doesn't this man do? And let me add that he has a wicked sense of humor that's very engaging.
That's kind of you.
Well, thank you, Myron, for being here with us. And I want to give you an opportunity to say hello to the Advocacy Arena audience.
Hello, Advocacy Arena audience, and thank you all for having me on, and thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I am too. So let's dig in and get started. As I said, one of the things that you do, you're a great prolific creator, and you have written a lot of books and novels, and you have your own publishing company. How long have you had the publishing company?
I set it up probably, I think, in 2013, so I guess about 12 years now.
Okay.
And I had begun just doing some light writing for different publications, just articles and things like that. And then when I decided I wanted to try to write a book, I worked with a friend of mine who at that time was a digital manager and marketing manager in certain other arenas. And so we set it up then. It's called Dear Dean Publishing.
Okay, exactly. And what was the first book that you wrote?
My first book is a small little book that's also an audiobook, and it's called Her Legend Lives in You, the Untold Creation Story Honoring the Goddess and Our Daughters.
Ah,
And it's a very small little book, and it came from a series of stories, mythological stories that I was making up, telling my daughter when she was very young. And the book has it's a whimsical tale with enchanted animals and magic, but it's a retelling of creation in a way that is kid appropriate, but it focuses on if the creator was a goddess, if there was a creator, and if the creator was a goddess. And so it takes you through creation to the goddess having a daughter. There's a step parent, there's magical creatures, but it's also a look at what my editor calls the divine feminine. And there's no violence. There's nothing that's not appropriate for a child that's 8 and up, I would say. But it has some deep themes that adults would really like. And interesting enough, it is probably out of all my books and novels, it may be the most beloved because of the way it's written. It's written in a type of, the prose is, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but I've never met a person who didn't love that book.
I am going to have to get it. I have two little goddesses in my life, two
There you go.
granddaughters, and I think it would be lovely to share. And I love knowing the inspiration behind it. And you answered another question that I had for you was, which one of your projects or your books were your favorite? So I think you kind of answered that.
Yeah, that one is. I wouldn't even say because I have one child and a daughter, and she's in college now. And I lost my mother when I was 20 years old. My mother died of colon cancer, and she was only 39. And so that book sort of pulls together things that have influenced my life, my mother, my daughter, and I put that together in this book. And so it is my favorite. And I tell you, since you mentioned your granddaughters, that book sells around Mother's Day every year. It is a book for mothers and daughters. I know I'm a father, but it's a book for mothers and daughters, and it
And
always sells
that's
around
just
Mother's Day.
amazing, as you said, that being a father, but that you could tap into that vein of feminism and womanhood. And that speaks to you and your talent. So I applaud you for that. I
Thank you.
can't wait to get my two copies to
Awesome.
share with my two little angels. And we're going to talk about another project that you
Mhm.
worked on for quite some time. And, I know that, like, I engage with you online and on many different platforms. So I know you to be someone who is very politically savvy and in tune. And, I know one of the projects that you've spent a lot of time working on, I'd like for us to talk about, especially in lieu of the fact that here in this political climate that exists, we have media and journalists publishing books about the president
Mm.
that just left office. One of the most consequential presidents in my lifetime.
Mm.
And I'm like, that's what you're choosing to do? Weigh
Yeah.
in on that, Mari.
So I started part of my Dear Dean publishing. I also had a Dear Dean blog, and I would write weekly articles, blogs.
Mm-hmm.
And once then Senator Kamala Harris put her hat in the ring for president prior to 2020. And I was a Kamala Harris supporter. Just so your audience knows, I'm from Oakland, California.
I hear you. I have relatives there.
See, I was born in the same hospital as Kamala Harris, Kaiser Hospital in Oakland,
Okay.
just 3 months apart. And I like to say it was the same doctor that delivered us, but I don't know that that's true.
We'll pretend that it is. I
We'll
like
pretend
that
that's true.
story.
Yeah. And so I followed her career since she was in and around Oakland and Berkeley, when she ran for DA in San Francisco, when we in California voted her as our attorney general, and then as our senator, and then when she ran for president. So I go way back in following Kamala's career. And one of my neighbors worked for Kamala in the Attorney General's office. And so I've been a follower of her and an admirer of hers. And so when she put her hat in the
Terrifically
ring,
talented lady.
she's remarkable. I followed her immediately. And then when President Biden or candidate Biden selected her as his running mate, I decided right then that I was going to chronicle their time in office together. And I wanted to do it real time. So some of the articles, some of the essays and pieces that are in the book, I was writing as they were happening. And so then once she ran for president and then lost, I put it together, right? I think I had 3 editors and we were furiously trying to get this book out prior to the election.
Hmm.
And we ran into some hurdles because some places would not display the book because they said it was pro President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and they needed an equal platform for the candidate Trump. So I didn't get it out as much as I wanted. However, I captured everything up to her losing. And so it is a chronicle. It's about a 5-year span, 2019 to 2024. All the key points of their administration, their accomplishments, the things that she was doing going around the world, and then editorials as well. You know, I captured my views and opinions. And it's the first book about them. And so now speaking about that other book that just came out, that is just, it ripped into President Biden, who, like you, I agree with you. I'm 60 years old, and he is one of the most consequential presidents of my lifetime.
Hmm.
And I am, like many people, I love President Barack Obama,
Hmm.
but I also realize the limitations of what he could do.
Right.
And that's a whole nother conversation. And like many people, I admire President Biden for being a great vice president to Barack Obama. And you know, something I just mentioned the other day on one of my TikTok videos, I admire, and I think it's admirable for all Americans to know the journey that a man President Biden's age took, right? Born in segregation.
Hmm.
And he held segregationist views early in his life. He was born into it.
Hmm.
That man progressed, right? He grew, he learned about us, and he became comfortable enough with us where he accepted the vice presidency for 8 years.
Hmm.
And we know, and I learned this from my grandparents, that not many white people will follow black men and black people, black women. He did that with President Obama. And then he picked Kamala Harris.
Yes.
That's a historical thing he did, right? And so my book captures the best of President Biden as well, and I'm very proud of it. It's selling very well, and I'm very proud of it.
Well, good. I can't wait to get that one too. I tell you, as I said, I'm going through renovations, and this year has been
That's hard.
crazy for me, not to mention, the political climate, but just in real life. But I have
Sure.
these lists that I'm keeping, and so your books are on my list. And I like what you expressed about President Biden, the arc of his life, and how we can change and often do. And one of the things that I really admire about him is like how he lifted up and leaned into Black women. Like that, to me, he will always be endearing to me for that. And I'm really saddened and sending his family and him just all sorts of prayers for his recovery, because I want this man to be able to enjoy his life with his family outside of politics and public service, because he's been a lifetime of
It's
public
been
service.
50 years. Yeah. 50 years, and he deserves his rest. He deserves to be able to spend time with Dr. Jill, his wife, his grandkids, and to be that elder statesman that retiring presidents like to be. He deserves that. And so him sharing his diagnosis, it was devastating, right? It's devastating. You know, prostate cancer is no joke, period. And
Right. And for
yeah,
him to be like one of his key issues, or I think things that he championed, was the cancer moonshot.
yes, it was. He put so much into that. And I hate that, you know, him sharing that he doesn't have to, but he is undergoing attacks from so many in the media.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using those attacks to attack Kamala Harris as well. And it feeds into this thing that you can't even be a good person and expect to be treated with respect even after you're out of office. And I think the way that the American media, particularly American media, has sunk to always stay in attack mode, it's really a disservice to the American public.
It really is. I mean, and I don't even look at them as like quote unquote journalists anymore. It's more infotainment.
That's a great point.
Because, I'm a little bit older than you, but I grew up with folks like Walter Cronkite,
Yes,
where the news was the news.
it was
Like,
the news.
yeah, your opinions, that was another whole thing. And
Yeah.
we could get access to that in some ways. But I feel like now all of it is opinion driven and with biases. And it's okay because we all have them. But I think they do, the citizenry a disservice by not providing just some basic news and context. That's the thing. Like, even when they tell the facts, I don't like that they use false framing, i.e., the framing
That's
of
good.
Republicans, like they're still calling this big, beautiful bill. Like, it just
Yeah.
keeps it seeped, it gets it to seep into the psyche and unknowingly of
Mhm.
people. And I want them to be better because we really do need them. But if they're not going to do their job, then we need to find other folks like you and other folks who are reporting and providing information, freelance journalists and
I think you make a
writers.
good point that freelance journalists, and we see it online. So those of us who are chronically online, we see the other non-big media journalists, the ones who have blogs and their own websites. And I even have I have a monthly digital magazine. It's called Dear Dean Magazine. We
Yes,
speaking
I
of, yeah,
subscribed recently.
I do a lot. I do a lot. So
I'm like, when does this man sleep? I keep looking and I'm like, he does that, he does that. And you do a podcast.
I do a weekly podcast, and my magazine is called Dear Dean Magazine, and I get submissions and contributions from anybody and everybody, but it is definitely pro democracy, pro Democrats, pro Black women, pro LGBTQI, and I will publish it. But I don't write all the articles, but I write a lot of them. And it is because, as you were saying, we have to have a robust citizen journalist environment because we're not getting it from big media. We know that you're not going to get it from any Fox affiliated media, from Sinclair. You're not going to get it from Bezos controlled media, or I can't think of the guy who owns the LA Times.
Right.
He's that guy. And you're just not going to get it. And even in looking at the way the journalists, as they were formerly called, are rallying around that other book and defending that guy, even though the sources are either anonymous or people have come out and said, that didn't happen. I was there. That didn't happen.
I mean, I am just like appalled that, like,
Yes.
Jamie Harrison.
He said it very clearly. I was there. That did not happen.
And then the guy says, read the book. Like, you want him to read a book to find out what if something happened to him? Like,
Yes.
get real.
It's terrible. It's just terrible. And that's why, it's really important that we get these type of, not just my magazine, but there are other people who have things, because those of us online, we see it. But I know in some of my family chats, sometimes I bring up something and my family chats, they have no idea. They have no idea. And even going back to the election, I would say, here's some of Kamala's policies. Here's what she's proposing. I have, my family chat ages range from 30 to 70. Sometimes they just wouldn't know. that stuff isn't getting out because the big media that people are used to depending on, you're not getting it from Walter Cronkite, right? It's not coming
Exactly.
out.
And that's what they're seeing. And some of them, as you said, they're not chronically online like us and reading and searching for stuff because they still think that the media is doing what it was intended to do. There's a reason that the it's in the Constitution.
Yes, it's right there in the Constitution. I hope that one day we can move back towards actual journalism, holding power to truth, doing that. I don't know when that day will come, but I hope we can get back to that.
I do too. Until then, though, we're going to keep looking at people like you. And, what kind of suggestions do you have? And definitely, we want folks to subscribe to your newsletter. And
It's free,
yes.
and it'll just be dropped to your mailbox once a month on around the 20th to 22nd, something
Okay.
like
When
that.
we post the episode, I'll make sure that I put links in
Okay.
to your sites and everything. And as I said, I recently subscribed, and who knows, I might get up the nerve to make a submission.
I would love it. I get professional journalists, writers, and I get novice. And I just say, you know what? Get it in. You don't have to be a professional. Just get your words out there, be heard.
Yes, and I think it is important, and those of us who are politically in tune become sources of information for our family and our friends who are not. So I feel
Yes.
an obligation at this point to stay well informed because I know that many people in my circle will call me up or look to me if there is something going on they're not sure about. Well, is this what's happening? Can you explain this? Or have you heard about this?
Yes. That's a big deal. And so I recommend, just like you're doing, the thing you hear about, even podcasts, like, share, review, all those basic things really do work,
Mm-hmm.
right? They really do work. And because we don't have the reach of big media. And then if we drill down, because I am on all the social apps, and there's something that's very consistent about all social apps. The more conservative you are, the higher follower count, the higher views you get.
Mm-hmm.
And because conservative people tend to be white,
Mm-hmm.
then the white accounts and white conservative accounts have the biggest audiences. And those of us who are on the blue side have smaller audiences. And then if we're black, we have even smaller audiences. And then if we're black women, we have even smaller audiences. So it's
Exactly.
hard to break through. And that's true on Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, YouTube. And you hear the Democrats right now talking about how do you break through when you have a Joe Rogan and these other people, and they have tens of millions, tens and giant contracts with major media companies, and you just have regular little people like us. We can't get that. And Joe Rogan, I mean, quite frankly, he's not an intelligent person, but it doesn't matter,
No, he
right?
draws the people, and that's the
He
thing.
draws the people.
Unfortunately, and a lot of people think that because these folks online have big followings, that they're good, like they're
Yes.
providing good content. And I am always trying to remind people that, the two are not necessarily equal.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so I decided, because I worked in corporate America for 41 years.
Hmm.
And then shortly after COVID, I left, and I had already started writing. And I thought, you know what? I am going to be my own version of Robert Murdoch. I'm going to create my own empire. And so my weekly podcast, my monthly digital magazine, and I'm writing my books, and then I put content out across the media. And I'm small, I'm one person, but there's more of me out there, and there's more of you out there, and our messages have to get through. So going back to your question, I say we have to support each other, we have to share each other's work, and we have across platforms.
Right.
And that even means, this is sort of taking a little turn, but it even means, like, someone said to me online, they said, "Oh, I want to buy your book, but I don't want to buy it from Amazon. I don't want to support Amazon. Can you point me to a local bookstore where it may be in?" And I said, okay, I want to share something about that. The major publishers are just like major media. It's the big people that they'll put in all the bookstores,
Hmm.
right? And it's harder for smaller people to get those contracts. And so I can't change Jeff Bezos. And Amazon is the largest distributor of books. And so my book is there. Now, I can find in my area I could find, I think I was able to travel to 10 or 15 local bookstores to get my book in those bookstores. But that's 10 or 15 bookstores,
Exactly.
right? That's not the reach that you need. We have to be in a place, an Amazon marketplace. There are other online retailers as well, because Barnes and Noble will sell mine and a few other smaller, but it's not entirely fair to small creators to say, don't go to the largest distributor of
Right. We
this
have to be
stuff.
strategic in our
Yes.
boycotting because we ran into
Yes.
this problem with, folks, boycotting Target because
Yes.
during the pandemic, there were some Black merchants who, vendors who got their products in there, a lot of Black
Yes.
women. So when
Yes.
we boycott them, we boycott these Black women who just had an enormous space opened up
Yes.
for them. So you
Yes.
got to think about this,
You
and
got to
it's
think
it's
about
not
it.
always black and white, and we have to be very strategic because, like you, I have a small little book out there on
Hmm.
Amazon. I don't even
Hmm.
really talk about it that much.
Hmm.
It's a soap making book because that was a passion project
Sure.
for me. But again, like you said, nobody's going to be carrying that thing,
Right. Right. I
going
can't
100
travel.
book.
Yes, I can't travel to the five biggest states and visit local bookstores. You can't even call them and email them. Like it's hard. Like it's almost impossible.
Right.
So
And so we need to be supported. I'm glad we're having this discussion around this, the nuance of that.
hmm
And I
hmm
appreciate that people are trying to use their wallet to,
yes.
send a message. I think we should always be thinking in those terms, but like I said, not so myopic. Like I'm just not going to shop there.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. That we have to be strategic in our thinking. And I said this to my daughter. I said, look, as a Black person, the moment I walk outside, every place I go, I could boycott because of their policies. Like,
Thank you.
like we're in America.
We've
My
lived
more
long enough, right?
right, even inside my house, my mortgage owner, I could boycott everything. But we have to survive in this country. And so, to your point, we have to be strategic. Right? We don't have the luxury of some other communities that could just say, I'm never going to Walmart. Well, you know what? Some places there's only a Walmart.
Yeah, when you in places like where I live, I'm in Tennessee,
Hmm.
and I really would have to go out of my way to shop other places. I can order stuff from other, but it's not always easy or affordable for us to do it
Yes,
that way. And
that's exactly right.
unfortunately, Walmart wiggled their way into a lot of these small towns and stuff,
They did.
being the price cutter, but not only did they give us low prices, but they also put a lot of other small businesses out of business.
They did.
And
They
now they
did.
own us.
Now they own us, right? And they give us a few jobs here and there. But there's some people, like you're saying, who Walmart is the only thing within 10, 20, 30 miles sometimes. And what are you going to do?
Exactly. So we have to be smart about this. And I want to start to wrap up
Okay.
here. But I really, really have enjoyed this. And I would like for us to do this again.
Anytime.
Because, as you said, I think it's important that we amplify one another because we are swimming upstream. There are a lot of
We
people who
are.
are probably not as talented as you and I who could go out there and get all kind of backing and exposure.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
really have to fight for ours, and we should be in that fight together. So as we start to close here, I'd like to give you an opportunity to just speak to the audience about whatever is on your heart, and please do tell them where they can find you.
I appreciate this time with your audience, and I am on all the apps. I am either Myron Clifton on the app or Dear Dean Publishing. It's one or the other. And if you just search my name, Myron Clifton, that's my handle on all the apps. My Dear Dean Publishing website, that's the website, Dear Dean Publishing. You can see all my books. You can subscribe to my magazine there. My weekly podcast, which is in its fourth season, is called Voice Memos.
Just discovered that I was like, like I said, I was like, what isn't this?
Yeah, it's me and one of my good friends, white woman, and we talk pop culture, politics, race, gender, food because she's a vegan and I'm not, so we go back and
It's
forth on
so
that.
interesting. I can't wait to go through some of the back
Yeah,
episodes.
we
I was
have
like, oh
fun.
my God.
TV, movies, just the whole deal. It's just two friends for 40 minutes to an hour a week. In my magazine, we take submittals. So if you want to submit something to the magazine, Dear Dean Publishing comes out once a month. Just submit it, send it to my email. You can submit it on my website. And then I would like something that's on my mind right now is and I want to share this with your audience, is I mentioned before I'm 60 years old. And I could name perhaps 30 country and nations that my government has told me to hate in my lifetime. And all over the world, right? This hemisphere, the continent of Africa, Europe, Asia, they've told me to hate these people from these countries. And I don't want to be told who to hate. I don't want to hate anybody.
Exactly.
Right. And I don't want to be told who to hate. And I'm not going to hate on demand, right? Just hate on demand. Right now, like this government tells us to hate Canada. It makes no sense. And so that's been on my mind, that a lot of our anger at the rest of the world is because we're told to hate the rest of the world. And I don't think we should hate the rest of the world.
I agree, because there's nuances there as
There's
well.
nuances. Yeah.
And having spent a decade in another country, as I'm a veteran, I spent a decade in Germany, and I got to go to East Berlin when it was still under communist rule.
You're there. I mentioned that. Yeah.
And I was there when the wall came down.
You were there.
What I always try to remember is that take for instance, our country now, like all of us are not like the people who hold power.
Exactly. And I can't change that man and his policies. I don't have that power.
But some good people are here and reside in this country. And you can find the same with other countries around the world. And I love that you phrased it like that. You don't want to be told to hate. And one of the things that I'm starting to try to do too is to try to explain to people that, like, the nuances just of our humanity, of us being human. You talked about in the beginning how President Biden, his lifespan in art, he changed. And I feel like because of social media, maybe it's like we just say good, bad with people, good, bad, like there's no room for nuance, and we all have them. And we need to remind people of that. Like, no one is perfect. We're not. And we need to stop expecting this perfection from our politicians and from other, citizens. Like, let's deal with our humanity and help people grow if they are so inclined. And,
I like that.
And you can pick up if people are willing or malleable, willing to change, and approach them in this way. But I feel like we have just gotten at this age and stage where, a person does one bad thing and like they're out. That's it.
We're canceled. Yeah. As if we weren't all youthful and made mistakes.
Exactly. And just complex people. And that, good people can make mistakes and do bad things.
Yes.
And every now and then bad people can do good things. You know what I'm saying?
Very true. It happens every now and then.
So thank you so much. This has been a really delightful conversation. I would like to make sure that we stick a pin in being able to do it again.
Yes, just hit me up online, email, however you want, and I'll be happy to make some time.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to wish
you... It's my pleasure.
A wonderful rest of the day. And again, just appreciate all the work that you do. Always try to amplify you and, keep your work out there present.
Thank you.
It's important. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.